Hello, everybody, and here we are with another inspirational conversation. I'm Claire Westwood, the Chief Creative Maverick, and I'm here to activate and illuminate luminaries who are living their purpose to be fully expressed and making their difference in the world, but also living a life that really lights them up, that they really enjoy. And today I have a lovely guest with me. I have Terry, who we couldn't remember how long we've known each other when we were trying to work it out the other day. But we reckon it's about 16, 17 years, something like that, when we were both in the coaching communities in Cheltenham, where I lived at the time, and Terry still lives quite near there now. And we got to know each other really well when I was going through a pretty much an intense part of my addiction journey. And even though Terry's only a handful of years older than me, he was very much like a kind of father figure coming to my rescue when I needed it. So we went through a very intense experience together, and that was 12 or so years ago. And yeah, we've still stayed in touch since. And Terry's got a really interesting story and does a beautiful thing in the world now. So I'm really happy to bring his story to more people. So thank you for joining me, Terry, on this drizzly grey day.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Claire. And I always enjoy our conversations. I mean, I think over those 17 years, our relationship has been a bit like the sea. The tide comes in,
Yeah,
and we're close for a period, and then the
yeah,
tide goes out, but the connection is never lost.
yeah.
And I think that to me is a good sign of a friendship, that you can have these quiet moments, but when they pick up again, it's as though we were just talking last week.
Yeah,
And you
totally.
definitely
And
fall
we,
into that category with me.
yeah, and we talk about all sorts of topics as well.
Mm.
So we'll have to try, I'll definitely have to keep an eye on the time today, because we have had some quite mammoth conversations. But today, for a change, Terry, it's all about you. So that'll at least, that'll cut out 3/4 of the time we normally take, because I won't be saying quite so much. So that'll save us a huge amount of time. So yeah, so for the people, the audience, you just sort of talk a little bit about, your family life, how you were as a child, and anything that, you want to mention about that period of your life.
It's actually quite an interesting question to ask, because I'm going through a process at the moment where my mum will be 90
Yeah,
in 31 days.
amazing.
And my parents will have been married 70 years
Wow.
um, in 49 days.
Okay.
So I am creating a daily countdown of pictures and a countdown calendar for both mum's birthday and my dad. So I'm actually looking through photo albums,
Amazing.
go back that far, take a picture, put a countdown, and it's sent to them every day. And it's interesting as I reflect on that and have had conversations with them, because, let's be honest, they're not going to be around that much longer now.
Yeah.
Um, I suppose I was a very um, obedient uh, boy.
Yeah.
Um, I'm the eldest. I have a brother who's 4.5 years younger than me. But I always played by the rules. Um, kind of always have. My
Yeah.
brother a little bit more rebellious.
Yeah. Those
Probably,
those second children, Terry.
I know. I paved the way for him. Uh, and I suppose my parents would describe the difference between us is that when we were playing sport at school,
Yeah.
and I'm not very good at football or anything like that, um, I would come home with perfectly clean kit because I'd stayed out of the way of trouble.
Mm,
My brother, on the other hand, would come back covered in mud.
yeah.
But he did that within the first 90 seconds of any game. He would dive into mud and then he'd stay away. But
Yeah.
everybody looked at him as though, my God, you were really involved. And everybody looked at me and go, why are you so clean and tidy?
Yeah. We won't pass you the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but I was my parents moved a lot for work. My dad was a project accountant for Costain Civil Engineering, and he moved from the northeast of England, where we were born, when I was 5. I just started school,
Mm.
and we went up to a place called Helensburgh, just north of Glasgow, where they were building the Faslane nuclear submarine base.
Yeah, my brother lived there for a while. I don't know if we've ever mentioned this before.
No, I don't think we have.
Yeah.
And I had 2 schools I went to there. And one of the things I learned there was if I didn't make friends quickly,
Mm.
then I just wouldn't have friends. And it's only in hindsight when we look back on these things that what I was learning was the beginning of being a people pleaser.
Okay. Yeah.
And how do you fit into groups? Well,
Mm.
don't make waves, don't upset people, find ways to be helpful, but always really I didn't know it at the time, but at a price to myself.
Mm. Yeah.
And that, I say, I'd have been 6, 7 when we were in Scotland, and that was it. It set the pattern really for most of my, well, all of my school life and a fair
Mm.
chunk of my adult life
Mm.
being a people pleaser, and then a recovering people pleaser, because a bit
Mm.
like alcohol, it's always there, and if I give
Mm.
into it, I'm lost again.
Mm.
Um, but I was also very studious, loved reading books, and I think the things that kind of influenced me when I was little, I was brought up in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So we were at the height in the 60s in terms of televisions and movies with spies.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly you had James Bond, but on television you had The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Mm.
And I think at some level, when you say, what are you doing as an adult that may have had seeds planted when you were a kid? Um, Look at these spy movies and superhero movies, and the archetype for all of those is that they want to make the world a better place.
Okay. Yeah.
They want to make the world a safer place.
Yeah.
And I think that continues in my life today. How do we create a safer, a more peaceful place where people um, can happily live together, not as
Mm.
people pleasers,
Mm.
but in a sense of equality, that we value each other as individuals. And if we
Yeah.
don't get on with somebody, then we don't have to bring them down.
Mm.
Move on. I mean, there are 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah.
No, there's plenty to go around.
Yeah.
So if we don't like certain people, then if we're strong enough as individuals, strong enough connected to ourselves,
Yeah.
then we can walk away and in the walking away, not diminish ourselves and certainly not diminish the other person.
Mm.
But I think that became, I didn't know it at the time. It sounds sort of maybe pompous to think as a child I knew that. I didn't. You know,
No.
this is stuff in much later life. But I do like the idea of things are often hidden in plain sight.
Mm.
And our job is to actually put the pieces together into some sense of order that
Mm.
we can understand and do something with.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely with the, when we go through the personal development journey and we start to do self-inquiry and self-reflection and, these kind of stories from the past or things that come up, it's it's always the looking back that gives us the kind of juiciness, because when we're in it, it's quite difficult. And then we get to a slight point where we can sort of do that quite quickly, not long after things have happened. Say, I get triggered by something and then I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's really activated something in me, despite all the work I've done on myself and all of this. But I'm much quicker now at kind of both resolving my energetic triggers, but also just going, okay, what is it in me that needs that? Whereas, years ago, it's you just kind of riding the waves of it all, and then it takes a bit of sort of time and experience and expertise to be able to do that for ourselves. But it's really interesting, I think, to go back and look at things that were, alive then, or that the essence of Terry hasn't really changed over the years, sort of thing. And also undoing some of the programming, because I know, like, when I first got into coaching when I was about 30, so like half my lifetime ago, and it was sort of like, yeah, we're programmed through school and uni and work and whatever we do, and our family units and our communities and stuff, to play these roles, people pleasing being one of them, high achiever being another one, or the rebel, or the whatever, the clown. And then when we start to really look at who we are, then that's a really good time to look at how we've been conditioned, and maybe go back to who we were, before we, when we were under 5, say. And it's like, okay, if we can remember that far back and we can remember our experiences, then that can give us really great information for moving forward. But yeah, it's interesting how, we have to fit into certain roles up to a point, because we have to be, if we're going to do a job in a particular organization or fulfill a role as a parent, then there's certain understandings or things that go along with that. But yeah, it's really interesting when we can really look at, but how can I do that more as me, without the external conditioning. But yeah.
And it is so deeply hardwired.
Yeah.
And I do think it's an evolving process.
Always. Yeah.
I remember when I was doing my A levels, and it was all like, what do you want to do when you leave school, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to do was to be a navigator in a plane.
Okay.
But I wear glasses. And at the time, we're talking in the 70s, there was a very tight regulation on eyesight. Couldn't wear couldn't wear contacts or things like that. So that was pushed to one side. So what was the next aviation thing that I thought I could do? And air traffic control. And I remember having a day trip to our local airport, Staverton, which was very small. I mean, it's
Yeah.
small now,
Yeah.
but it was even smaller then. But I remember going into the control tower and spending the day with this air traffic control man. And there was no computers there. I mean, you were literally like in old war movies. They had
Yeah.
planes on stickers. And I said to him, what do you like about this job? And he said, oh, I like the fact that there's no inbox at the end of the day. He said, because you can't say to a plane, okay, I'm finished now. I'll be back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. You
Yeah.
had to pass it over. And he said, and I'd get a new box of planes to deal with first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that sort of tidiness. But he said, we still have the eyesight issue here. And if your eyesight falls below a certain level, you'd just be out. There'd be nothing else to do. And it's like, well, that's too risky.
Yeah.
So I remember going back, and my dad was a company accountant. And maybe in that part of me that wanted the approval of my parents,
Yeah.
made the decision to, well, will I become an accountant? No, I'm not sure. I'll be a teacher. I'll be a maths teacher. I like maths.
Yeah.
So I chose my A levels, told the head of sixth form what I wanted to do. He was really pleased because he's a maths teacher.
Right. Yeah.
Last year into my sixth form, I suddenly realized I did not want to go on to further education, didn't want to go into university or anything. So I was like, what could I do? Well, become an accountant and do a 1 year conversion course. Well, I could do a 1 year conversion course. So I went to him and said, I'd like to change my future direction. Don't want to be a teacher, want to be an accountant. Can do a 1 year conversion course after my A levels. And I remember to this day, he looked at me and said, your maths isn't that good, Terry. I I don't think he realized exactly what he
Yeah.
was saying. Like, your maths is good enough to be a teacher, but it's not good enough to do a proper job.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I was kind of internally furious
Mm.
to be dismissed on something that I thought thought out well.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen the fact that I was seeking parental approval by doing a job that they would approve of, and
Yeah.
that was an easy route out. I
Yeah.
was just annoyed that my approach had been knocked back.
Yeah.
But that set me up because it was then, okay, what am I going to do? And I decided not to do the accountancy. What's the next best thing? I tell you, I'll become a banker. And I can go into being a banker, and in the 3 years, people will be off doing a degree. I'll have proved myself at work. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
We can do it. And so I, I, I joined Lloyd's Bank at 18,
Mm.
didn't realize that the degree wasn't a means of actually uh, it wasn't something that I could ignore by having 3 years experience on the job. They took the fact that you had a degree as you were more intelligent, they could do more with you. So I very much fell into dead man's shoes.
Right. Yeah.
But I got into my first managerial position, which is what I said to the sixth form teacher in my head. I'll show you. I'll be in
Yeah.
management by I'm 30.
Yeah.
I, I got into management when I was 28. And then it was like, well, now what? I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do with my life because I achieved a goal. I had no sense of direction, no sense of purpose, just get this goal ticked off. And the
Yeah.
void that I was just presented with took me a couple of years to actually process that.
Yeah, so
Um,
similar. So when I was 29, I'd done a part, so I hadn't gone to uni, I'd gone to train as a nurse, and then nursing was starting to get so, into higher education, and nurses all need a diploma now and blah blah blah. And I thought I'm going to be left behind. So I did a part-time degree. And in that year, I, was promoted to a junior sister on a children's ward because children's was my speciality. I graduated from my 4 year degree and I bought my first house. And then I suddenly went like you, like, okay, things I'd really, I'd done 4 years work for my degree, and okay, get the promotion and blah blah blah. And I was like, I'm not sure I want to do this for another 30 years. Do you know what I mean? I'd done it since I was 18 and I was now getting on for 30, and just like, oh, like very much like yourself, like, well, it's all right, but I don't think I want another 30 years of it. And then what? So yeah,
and it was um, there was another aspect when I was 18 um, that mapped itself out against that window. Um, I had been some friends of my parents had said, "Oh, we have a French girl coming across for she's staying with us. Would Terry take her to the golf club disco on a Thursday night or something? Give somebody of her age because they were much older than my parents."
yeah.
So we did. We actually got into a relationship.
Mm.
She lived in Paris, and I flew over to Paris every 6 weeks. I had a really, really good life. I mean,
Mm.
I started work a month before I met her. I earned
Mm.
£106 a month. Out of that £106 a month, I could pay mum and dad £30 for keep. I could save, and I could fly to Paris every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I was like, how can you do that? Anyway, we got to a point where I overheard my parents talking, saying, "Do you think Terry's going to um, marry Kathy?" And they said, I remember Dad saying, "I'm not sure, but if he does, I'd be happy with that." And I remember thinking that that was a green light that I could propose to her. I would
Right.
not have any difficulty convincing Mum and Dad it.
Yeah.
I have subsequently told her about that. And again, it's that kind of people pleaser part.
Yeah.
I don't want to upset my parents. I don't want them to be ashamed of me, etc. Everything was through that lens of not what I wanted, but what I could do that would please somebody else.
Yeah. So that wasn't necessarily, oh, I really want to marry this girl. It was like, if I did, it would be approved of. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Interesting.
we got engaged, and she came across and lived in England, and then we broke up, you know. But we've been together for about 5 years. But I don't know whether you have the same position as a woman, but as a man, being a provider, it was kind of hardwired into me that the hardest thing was to succeed at work.
Mm,
Family life, a personal life, well, you just got that.
mm,
That that comes as the prize for
mm,
doing the work. That set me really off on the course of probably not being a very good person to be around,
mm.
but very much a workaholic,
Yeah.
because it was always trying to prove myself, always trying to climb the corporate ladder, taking on more and more responsibility,
Yeah.
and just, well, why aren't my relationships working? Everybody gets a relationship. That's
Mm,
the reward for working hard. And when I got to 28 and I got into my managerial position, I was then single.
yeah.
I'd just broken up with another relationship, and it's like, God, dear me, something's going to have to change, but I don't know what it is.
Mm,
And then, I don't know, 18 months later, I met the the lady who'd become my wife and mother of my kids.
yes.
But I remember saying to her, because it seemed to be moving at a pace, and she was a lovely lady, is a
Mm,
lovely lady.
yeah.
Um, don't tell me you love me, or I'll be lost.
Wow.
It was like, if you tell me that, I won't be able to control myself. I will fall back into people pleaser mode.
Okay. Yeah.
And how can I make things right for you at my expense? And then we had two kids. They came quickly, and then I'm workaholic again. Having
Yeah.
said I will never be an absent dad, I became an absent dad.
Mm,
Um, and the dynamics of, you what is it? You meet people as matches to yourself.
mm,
So whatever shit I had going on, she had matching shit. And it's
mm,
how you navigate that.
yeah.
And ultimately we couldn't navigate it.
Yeah.
The blessing is that we are closer now as friends, um, than we were when we were married.
Yeah.
Um, and she and her partner came to my the wedding to my wife, and we all get on really well as a family. And that's part down to how I showed up, but it's very much down to how she showed up.
Mm,
And we have two good kids who have some scars as a result of the way in which they were brought up.
yeah.
But hey,
Yeah.
they're
We all
nice.
do.
Yeah,
Just goes with the territory.
they're lovely, balanced kids. But
Yeah.
I recognize, looking back, that life is broken up into chunks of time. That first 18 years you're at school, we're acquiring knowledge
Mm,
to give us a career,
mm,
right? And then, certainly as far as my life is concerned, but I think it might hold for other people, there's like 25 years where you are establishing yourself at work, you're climbing up the ladder, and then you get to kind of midlife. So, late 30s, early 40s. And then maybe you've got kids and life changes.
mm,
For me, my life changed at about 42 because I left the bank and became self-employed as a change management consultant as one of the things. Um, and I was then being paid for the knowledge that I had acquired for the 25 years I was in the bank,
mm. Yeah.
which kind
So
of brings me up
so
to,
what prompted you leaving then, making that decision? Going from kind of being, I've got to be a provider and I'm a bit of a workaholic, but this is all great, to going, I'm now going to leap out. Like, can you remember anything about that process?
oh yeah, I crashed and burned.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, I ended up doing a project for a couple of years, which was about 70 hours a week.
Wow. Okay.
When I was saying I didn't want to be an absent dad, that's where I became an absent dad for two
Yeah.
days, for 2 years. Um, and we had some foreign students who stayed at our house who came across to learn English.
Mm,
And I came, I came home early one day. We'd had an off-site meeting and it had finished early, so I had a chance to get home early. And I came into the house, and in my daughter's bedroom, uh, my two daughters were sitting having a tea party with their mum and this German student who was staying with us. And I went in, and my kids didn't even look at me. They were so engrossed in their tea party.
mm,
And I looked at this, and there was a moment of thinking, oh my God, this this is me looking in on another family. It's my family, but they don't need me. More specifically, they don't want me.
mm,
But I closed the door and I thought, but they're happy. And as long
mm,
as they're happy, that's fine. 2 weeks later, I came back again, off-site meeting, got back early, and my wife was writing on the back of a photograph. And she said, to my German hunk. And it was a picture of him with the girls. And I know there wasn't anything untoward happening there, but it made me realize what I was missing
mm.
in life. And
Yeah.
that night, I went into an emotional free fall.
Mm,
Um, and I can tell you that I probably cried from 10 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. Not continuous. That's the one thing. If you really let go, you can cry a long time, but it's only in like 5-minute chunks.
mm,
Then you cry yourself out and then you start again. But here I was, the world was falling apart around me, and I could hear my wife trying to make sense of what was happening. And
mm.
you know, and no judgment or criticism of her, she couldn't make sense of it. I was I was free falling and I couldn't make sense of it.
Yeah.
But I did feel this responsibility not to burden her with it. So
Mm,
I'm trying to pull my parachute to save myself, but primarily save her from having to deal with somebody who is a mess.
mm.
And so at 5 o'clock in the morning, I made a decision and said, I've got to stop what I'm doing. I've got to go back in, tell my boss, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And to her credit, she said, no, absolutely, go in, do what you need to do. And I went in and I said what had just happened. He was shocked, but equally understood that his part in that situation was at off-site meetings. Muggins here would put his hand up to take more work when I was already doing 70 hours a week, um, because nobody else was putting their hand up.
Yeah.
And that day before, I'd done exactly the same thing. People pleasing. I put my hand up and said, yeah, I'll do that. And
Mm,
he didn't say to the rest of the management team, no, Terry's got enough on his plate, somebody else.
yeah.
Right? So he just took it. And now he acknowledged I'd gone too far. So he said to me, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, I got to quit. Quit? Yeah. I said, I can no longer climb this corporate ladder. And the honest position is, if I'm like this where I am, I might as well fess up. No amount of promotional money is going to help me
Mm,
survive this.
yeah.
So he said, so if I could get you a different role in the bank, what would you consider? Yeah. Well, so what sort of role would you like? I said, well, something dealing with people. He said, I can't say I could get you a job in working with people. I can't necessarily get you a training role or anything. I said, well, that's okay. If you can't get me that, I'll leave.
Mm,
2 weeks before I was due to leave, a role in the corporate think tank came up, which took away all the managerial responsibility I had
mm,
and allowed me to be more creative and look at problems from a different perspective. So things that weren't working in the bank, how could we solve them? So in a way, nothing was sacrosanct. It either worked or it didn't work. And if it didn't
mm,
work, how could we make it work? And I kind of started to thrive in that environment. And then I put a whole training program together for a new IT program that was being rolled out. And they asked me, could I do this in Northern Ireland? And I said, well, yeah, I could, but what about the mainland? Oh, it's all right. You've sorted that out. You've created all the training manuals and all the stuff. We can get somebody else in to do that. But could you do it in Ireland? And so I went and did it in Ireland. And when that project finished, they said to me, well, that was a surprise. That came in under budget, in time. Everyone's happy. Would you like voluntary redundancy? And at the time, that was the first time anybody of my level of seniority had ever been offered voluntary redundancy.
mm,
And I was taken aback. It was like a backhanded compliment, but it's scary. And I
mm.
went back home to my wife and said what had happened. And I said, I don't quite know what to do. And again, to her credit, she said, well, you've got to take it, haven't you? And I'm saying, what? She said, so here's the thing. You either take it or you never talk about personal development and personal growth again.
Wow.
Because this is the essence. You've
Yeah.
you keep talking about people stepping outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
This is your comfort zone that you've got to step out of.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah. So we agreed a termination date and I left.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Mm.
So yeah. So let's talk about a bit about we could take 2 hours to cover cover some of these other bits, but I really want to get into like where the journey has taken you, like what you're doing now, because I know that's evolved quite a lot as well recently. But just, how those decisions sort of led you to doing the business that you're doing now, and kind of how maybe you've evolved and changed along the way that's led to the human business being something that was created, and then how that's also evolving, or how you're also evolving, if that's
Yeah.
not too long a question.
So let me position it in relation to when you and I met.
Yeah.
By the time you and I met, I had found myself doing what I'd call strategic video marketing.
Yeah.
Right? And I made some video spotlights with you.
You did.
And I loved that. I mean, I got involved in video before YouTube was born. And I never saw myself not involved in that line of work.
Yeah.
Could see it adapting and changing, but I never thought I wouldn't do it.
No, and I think just to position this for people who weren't in that world and maybe are a bit younger perhaps, or weren't involved in that, in order to do a video, I had to hire somebody like Terry. Like we didn't have smartphones that had video. We didn't have laptops that could do video. We couldn't do live presentations on video like this, or recorded presentations. It was like you hired somebody with a video camera to do it. And that was how it happened. And then there was an invention called a flip cam. You remember those? Which I've still got mine actually, which was about the size of a cigarette packet, and it had a little USB thing, and you could like record your own videos, and it was just like a stunning piece of technology. But basically, yeah, it was arduous, long-winded, and quite expensive to do video at that point. But that's why, yeah, somebody would hire an expert like you, and I remember we'd have a green screen, and we'd have the camera on the tripod, and you'd have all this massive setup. And when I think now, it's like, yeah, I pop my laptop on a thing and we have a chat. It's quite incredible, really.
It's come a long way. But actually, the germ of where I am now was in that,
Yeah.
because it was all about connections.
Yeah.
It was all about how do you create communities that are genuinely connected at a deep level with each other
Yeah.
through like video introductions. I mean, I'm still a strong advocate that outside of a face-to-face meeting, video is the best way to get to know somebody.
Totally. And then we had a little project we were going to do at one point, video business cards, because it's like, yeah, you can read about somebody, but actually if you see them and feel their energy and hear their voice, and it's like you say, it's the next best thing to standing next to somebody is doing video. And everyone knows that now, but back then everybody's like, you're doing what? Do you know what I mean? Like, and people very reticent about being on video. I mean, some people still are, but it was like it was a new concept to go, no, this is a really great way of being connected to somebody kind of virtually, but it's as good as we can get. Yeah.
The market changed obviously dramatically over crumbs 10 years that I was doing. I was involved in that.
Yeah.
And so we got to a point 2016, I think it was 2016, where I found myself internally more often than not just going, okay, if you want me to film it with a lens cap on, I'll film it with a lens cap on. That all of the knowledge that I had acquired, the reason why we do things the way we do them, people who had a smartphone thought, well, I can stand in front of the camera and I can do it myself. I don't need this. It's like, but you're not paying for the technology. You're paying for the knowledge of how to structure what it is you're going to say in 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And so at the time that was frustrating me, it might have been around the time that your mum died. And so the first introduction of death came to me.
Yeah. So that was 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had been, so it was then just the year before, maybe I was preparing myself for that. Because my parents are alive. My dad's 93, my mum's nearly 90. I am very fortunate as a 67-year-old man. But I think I heard a podcast where Emma Thompson's husband
Mm,
was talking about the death of his sister.
mm,
And so there was a lot of exposure during that year to grief and death and whatnot.
mm.
And then, that was it. Because at the end of 2016, two people died, one slightly older than me, one slightly younger than me, being Carrie Fisher and George Michael.
Right, yeah,
And it was, I think I understood at a completely different level that phrase, you never know when your time's up.
yeah.
And at that point, this question almost instantly came into my head after the day, well, Christmas Day, that was when George Michael died. Do you enjoy what you're doing, Terry?
Mm,
And the surprise was, no, I don't.
yeah,
And then the next question almost immediately was, well, what are you going to do about it?
yeah,
And I almost immediately again, I mean, like, who's putting these words in my mouth is another topic.
yeah.
Um, I'm going to give it a death date. Okay, what does that mean? Well, in practical terms, Claire, it would mean if you said to me in January, hey, this is great, Terry, could we do it in April? I could say, I'll be dead by then, Claire. It was like, if I wasn't enjoying it, if I wasn't working with the people who I really wanted to work with,
Yeah,
by the end of March, I'm out of here.
yeah.
As it turned out, by the end of January, I realized I had a cadabra on the cadabra? Dead
Cadaver.
body on cadaver on the
Yeah, you didn't
slab.
even need those extra 2 months. You were like, I've already, because I talked about this yesterday with somebody, and it's like when you've kind of made that decision and you give it time, but actually energetically you've already left, really.
Completely.
You're just
So
kind
it
of
took
tying up ends, or as I called it when I left my last job, consciously uncoupling to give other people time to get used to it. But I'm already checked out, really.
Elvis has left the building.
Yeah.
And it was it was a shock to realize that you could put 10,000 volts through this dead body. It wasn't going to come back to life again.
Yeah.
So it was going
Yeah.
to change.
Yeah.
Um, but I had a charity project I was involved in. So that gave me some focus, but it took about 6 months to end all of the commitments. And
Mm.
so at that point, when I closed it down, I knew I had what I call this final rodeo, but I didn't quite know what it was. And what I didn't want to do was to strangle it at birth by
Yeah.
needing a certain amount of revenue stream to support me.
Mm.
So I went into this process whereby I became a taxi driver,
Mm.
taking people to the airport. And I honestly, I was happier being an airport taxi driver
Yeah.
for what turned out to be the 5 years I did it than the previous 5 years running my own consultancy.
Yeah.
Who was the idiot? To honest, I must have been such a job snob that if somebody had said to me, "Do you want to be a taxi driver?" Taxi driver? Do you know who I am? I couldn't do
Yeah.
that.
I was
So
I
much
was
happier
honestly
then.
thinking of that term today or yesterday when I was thinking about this conversation and just going, yeah, I remember you saying that to me. And I was like, oh yeah, when we're kind of navigating the entrepreneurial world and the feeling is like, we're too good for a job, or if we have a job, we failed, or I can't possibly do it. And it's just, and that phrase that you mentioned to me ages ago, and I was like, oh, that's so good, because it's like, yeah, sometimes that's what it takes, to do a couple of things to take the pressure off, or just to make sure that we're still connected to people, or whatever it is that a job or a different way of living gives us,
But
and
it
not to kind of cut it off through feeling too good or too proud or almost like embarrassed. What if people find out I've got another job as well? And the kind of people pleaser, I've got to look, whatever it is. So yeah.
it's that approval thing, you
Yeah.
know. What will people think? And it's
Yeah.
like I think sometimes we have to experience these things for ourselves to realize what our own truth is.
Yeah.
At an intellectual level, things make sense, but
Mm,
they're really not a truth
yeah.
until we've had to embody it.
Yeah. Totally.
And that's scary. And so while I was doing the taxi driving, I had this great opportunity, 2 hours to the airport, 2 hours by myself in the car to think and reflect about what was important. And in that time, this idea of this human business idea
Mm,
that we could actually create a different way of working. And I'm primarily interested in micro businesses. I mean,
mm.
micro businesses represent 99% of UK PLC, right? And a micro
Amazing,
business
isn't it?
is 10 people or less. And a
Mm,
third of those micro businesses are just single director businesses.
yeah.
But when you hear people talk about well-being um, in the media, they're not talking about micro businesses. They're
Mm,
talking about businesses that have got money, people, and they've got resources to play with. If you ask a micro business, when was the owner, when was the last time you had a day off sick? They go, sorry, you don't
yeah.
go off sick.
Yeah.
So what what I've sort of spent the last few years focusing on is what I call a three-ring circus
Mm,
of time, money, and energy.
yeah.
Right? How do we best spend our time, our money, and our energy? Now we
Mm,
understand money in terms of if we overspend, we go bankrupt.
mm,
Not a good place to be.
mm,
But we are increasingly becoming time bankrupt,
mm,
right? And we are definitely becoming energy bankrupt because that's the well-being and the health crisis that we've got.
yeah.
But the solution as far as other businesses are concerned and the Kool-Aid that we as micro business owners have bought into is that I have to work harder.
Mm,
And that then just doubles down on why we have such a well-being crisis and a health crisis in the country.
yeah.
So I think what we've got to do is to create communities where people feel as though they can become a little bit more self-aware, that they can begin to recognize that what they're doing just isn't working.
Mm,
Like I was back in 2016 going, are you enjoying what you're doing?
yeah.
No. Well, what are you going to do? Right? There's no shame in not knowing what to do. The world moves at such a fast pace now,
Yeah.
it's not unreasonable to think that what worked 6 months ago, what worked a year ago, no longer works. And that Einstein definition of insanity, doing the same thing and hoping for a different result becomes even more true.
Yeah.
Right? Just because
Yeah.
it worked 6 months ago doesn't mean to say we have to be doing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things coming through. I remember us having a conversation about this a while ago. It must have been on the phone because I think I was in Bournemouth in a particular place, and you were talking about sustainable. And
Yeah.
I remember going, oh yes, it's got to be sustainable as far as financial, we think about financial sustainability, but also, our energy and our time, that kind of sustainability holding it up. And then the other thing, there's two questions. We can simplify things, really good. I've done a lot work with a lot of business mentors and things over the years. And two questions: am I enjoying it? Is it working? Like, we can get so tied up with all the, again, people pleasing. I've got all this stuff going on and I should be doing this. Da, 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 da. Am I enjoying it? Is it working? And then the other thing, which just made me laugh as I thought about it, was somebody talking about, business and life advice is the same as like sex. It's like, if it's not working, don't do it harder. And I was just like, yeah, don't do more of it if it's not working. And I was just like, okay, that's really, yeah, I remember that. And that tickled me. So yeah. So sustainability, am I enjoying it? Is it working? And if it isn't working, don't do more of it. Like, doing more of what isn't working is never going to bring you to a space where it's going to work.
Yes. And I think what's important to me in creating genuine, deep, meaningful connections and
Yeah.
facilitating that is that there is no place for micro business owners to talk openly to each other.
Yeah.
Most of their business comes through referrals, networking.
Mm,
When you go and meet people in those types of environment, you're on show, you're on
mm,
you're on your game.
mm,
So when somebody says, "How's it going?" It's going great. Because if you mention anything that maybe reflective of how difficult things are at the moment, the fear is you will lose whatever opportunity exists.
Yeah.
And that's too scary.
Yeah.
So we put a mask on
Mm.
and we go out into the world. Now, you and we've known each other long enough, because, and this isn't about how long you've known somebody, it's about how deep the connection gets in the shorter space of time.
Yeah.
When you really know somebody, when you genuinely know, like, and trust them, we accept that sometimes we have bad days,
Yeah.
but it doesn't define us. And so what we're trying to focus on with the human business is the idea of where can you go for a safe space to explore some of the challenges that you're facing as a person, not as a brand, but as a person with people who are going through the same stuff. Not to fix each other, but as a sort of self-exploration.
Yeah.
To create the awareness of, oh my God, this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
It's been there in plain sight, but I hadn't wanted to ask the question. Because I think if we look at the emergence of AI, if we haven't started to look at ourselves, what AI does is just double down. And by that, I mean, if we're already working 10, 11 hours a day, because we've been sold this paradigm of everything that you need to do, and I'm struggling in the 10, 11 hours, what you're increasingly seeing is the marketers coming and saying, AI can help you do this. If you bring AI into that model, but you haven't yet recalibrated inside, where you might have saved yourself 5 hours a day by using AI ethically, you're going to fill that 5 hours not with anything related to your well-being, not related to anything that's going to build you something of greater value elsewhere in your life. You're going to put it back into work.
Yeah.
And so we need to have safe spaces to have those conversations about what's really important to you. You know, hey, we've all got to make a living. We've all got to do to make money, but can we find a way to create that money in such a way that we feel in balance with it, right?
Yeah, totally.
That pursuit of revenue, that pursuit of money at all cost is what's created the problems. We need to be a little bit more strategic, I think. I'm not advocating a particular path for any particular person, but for our own internal reflection and go, this feels right for me.
Yeah,
And I,
totally. And I think, when we've been through that experience of burnout, and I have, when I tried to be a nurse and run a business both at the same time, even though I was coaching nurses on work-life balance and entrepreneurs on balance, I had no balance myself. And so this time round, it's okay, how can I make a positive impact, create my income, and still have time to go to my fitness classes, have a walk in the sunshine, have a nap if I need one, get plenty of sleep, all this kind of stuff, which I never would have done that before. My focus was very external on what does everybody want and need from me. Whereas now I'm like, I am the instrument through which all this happens. And therefore, I need to be inspired. I need to be fueled. I need to be fit. I need to be rested. And then what I share with the world is far more effective anyway, because it's coming from a place of fullness, not a place of depletion and overwhelm and frazzlement. I'll just birth that word into the world. But yeah.
Completely right, Claire. I look at it like as a pyramid. The base of the pyramid is a genuine connection to yourself.
Yeah.
When we know ourselves well enough, we can stand in front of somebody else and say, hey, this is me.
Yep.
Right? If I don't know myself well enough and I stand in front of you, the temptation is, what do I need to present to you
Mm.
for you to like me, for you to give me the business that I want? So I'm not building a relationship with you. I'm in a transaction. And the
Yeah.
transaction I'm in is, what's the most I can get from you, Claire, for the least I have to give?
Mm.
That's not a healthy relationship to be
Mm.
building for ourselves, or indeed our customers, clients, friends, whatever. But if we're fully connected to who we are, we stand in front of somebody and say, this is me, warts and
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Can you know, like, and trust me? And my
Mm.
experience is, people will genuinely know, like, and trust you when you stand in that space. If
Mm.
you don't stand in that space, people get a sense something's not quite right.
Yeah.
And they wait for the other shoe to drop before they actually go, yeah. And you can cut that by just being vulnerable enough to be
Mm.
yourself in front of them. And then the third level of connection is that when you've connected to yourself and connected to others, you are revealed what your purpose is.
Mm.
Purpose isn't something that you can find. It's revealed to you when you're fully connected to yourself, you're fully connected to the people around you, because it's something that's so non-ego driven.
Mm.
You can think, my purpose is to, I don't know, to change the world, to bring peace to the world, or it's all egoic stuff.
Mm.
I used to think of it in terms of, if I wanted to treat you for a meal, Claire, like a millionaire.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I'm not a millionaire, right?
Yeah, I was
That
good. That'd be nice.
So it means I have to pretend to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Millionaire might actually be completely happy to take you to the corner cafe.
Yeah.
So I'm beginning to sense that really my purpose is just to be true to myself.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean to say that I don't have a vision or a mission or anything else, but that vision and mission is never going to be manifested unless I stay true to the purpose, which is to be continually true to myself.
Mm. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think this is where I feel, I mean, we've both been, in and out of entrepreneurship for quite a few years, and seeing things changing. And it's so interesting, the group that you have, the human business, which is very much about, authenticity and sharing and well-being and getting to know people. And certainly where I live in Bristol, when I started looking for kind of conscious networking groups, I found one which was full of holistic healers, which was a beautiful group to go to. And now there's quite a few groups, mainly launched by women now, where you turn up as yourself. You wear what you want to wear, like the old days of sort of, I mean, they still exist, but when you and I used to do stuff, you'd get up at the crack of dawn and go and have a cooked breakfast with some people in a hotel and sat around a table. And I was like, is this essential to being in business? And now, we've got all sorts of opportunities to, there's groups in Bristol where we go and have a cup of coffee with each other. Like literally you book in and that's it. And we sometimes we have conversations for an hour and a half and go, we haven't really talked about business at all. Like before we go, it's like, should we all share our WhatsApp handles with each other? Because it is that real, we need a space where we can just chat, where we can talk to people who are going through the similar things. And I think a lot of business is getting more human, because the world's changing in different ways as well. And we're just like, thank God, I can wear my jeans to a networking thing, or I can turn up in my favorite pink warm hoodie, and I can just have a cup of coffee and talk to somebody like a human being, and I don't have to have any of that anymore. And I think things are definitely changing, and you're certainly part of that. So yeah, so we have talked past our time a little bit, but is there any last things that you want to share with the audience today, Terry?
Um, I suppose just one thing: learn to be gentle with yourself.
Mm,
And that's a very real thing right now.
yeah.
You might have come across a couple of books, one Tiny Habits, one Atomic Habits. and they talk about small changes.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of December preparing for January,
Mm.
making some changes. Um, and I thought I'd made them really small. I didn't make them small enough. I'm still shrinking objectives, targets,
Mm.
because I think if you're interested in any of this type of conversation, there's a feeling that I've got to rush at it. I've got to get on it. I've got to do something big.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's never going to happen. And
totally.
I'd encourage people, if there's anything that I've said that has in relevance to you, or anything that people have heard in other guests that you've interviewed, take the thing that's relevant, that resonates with you, and see how you can chunk it down so small that
Mm.
you think it's not even worth doing.
Yeah.
Because really what you're doing here is you're creating identity change.
Mm.
And it's much easier to create identity change if, instead of an exercise regime of I'm going to do 10 push-ups a day, commit to what could you do when you really don't want to do anything,
Mm.
right? When you're really feeling bad. And if it's one push-up, do one push-up. That's your
Yeah.
commitment to yourself. You can
Yeah.
do more, but get into that habit of I always do the smallest consistently.
Mm. Yeah. Beautiful. And there's definitely a perception, I think, that a lot of change happens very dramatically, and it can be dramatic. We can suddenly, resign from our job or ask somebody to marry us or fly to Australia. But actually, a lot of change is very incremental. And then that's where the momentum and the confidence starts. And then it's like, oh, from here, I can grow to another level or expand further because I've already got this foundations in place. And I know for me, like I left my last day job nearly 2 years ago, and I was like, right, as soon as I leave, I'm going to be creating this and running this and doing this. And it's taken me 2 years really to integrate everything that's happened in the last few years, which is a lot, and a lot for a lot of people, with COVID and all sorts of things. And I think we're kind of coming out of that now, like 6 years later, going, oh, okay, that was that was a while ago, but it's had, long-term ramifications for a lot of people, just as far as like, and being in the crazy world we're in now. And really giving myself time and space just to explore all of it without feeling like I have to be, yeah, doing, the kind of expectations that we put on ourselves that quite often come from outside. And I've got an amazing mentor in Soul Art School, and she's very much, I love the way she says this because it reassures me that this is really important. And she's like, if you imagine a massive tree, the roots of that tree are as big as the tree you can see at the top, but nobody sees the roots. So she's like, what we're doing here is, we do a lot of inner work and a lot of, soul guided creativity and processing things. And she says, nobody sees that, but that's actually what's going to hold up like the creations and the tree and the business and the life. But the roots are invisible to everybody. People are like, what are you up? No, like you're saying in business, what are you up to? What are you doing? It's like, I'm healing, I'm putting roots down, I'm exploring, I'm aligning with myself, I'm letting go of old stuff. And it's like, none of that is visible. But it's really, really important.
The world in which we live now is so comparative. We're
Mm.
bombarded with what other people are doing,
Yeah.
you know, and and I think it's a thief of the joy
Mm.
of life to feel as though I've got to be as good as that person.
Yeah.
My little thing means nothing if it's not that good or that
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
And we don't know what their life is like. We don't know whether they're burnt out, or where in that three-ring circus they sit.
Yeah.
But I do know where I sit, and I encourage everybody to be a bit more self-reflective as to
Mm.
where they are with their time, money, and energy, so that they spend it wisely.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I did some stuff around positive psychology and happiness research. And one of the things that makes us happy, we think getting these external things, a big house and a car and lots of money and a whatever qualifications or whatever we're fixated on. And they were saying one of the things that makes us most happy is time affluence. And I love the feeling of that because it's what you're saying. It's like if we fill our time with stuff, then we don't have time for self-reflection, for rest, for, you know, just doing pleasurable, joyful things, which are actually what makes life worthwhile. So yeah, that's a beautiful message. So thank you so much, Terry, for your company today. And we'll put all the links to Terry's things. You've got a Substack going at the moment as well, have you?
Yes.
Yeah, so so the business and the Substack and everything, we'll put all the links in the notes on under the podcast and the video. And but yeah, any final sentence, Terry? we'll be wrapping this up for a while. No, this is it. Any final thing, or have you said everything you need to say?
So one thing, if anybody wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
be prepared. I don't just accept people on LinkedIn. The first thing I'm going to ask you for is, do you want a virtual coffee?
yeah,
I'm not interested in collecting names.
yeah.
I'm interested in collecting relationships. So
Beautiful.
just kind of as a guide,
Yeah,
if what I've said intrigues you and you kind of, this is who you're going to have a conversation with. If
yeah.
if that's of interest to you, then let's have a virtual coffee.
Lovely. So reach out to Terry on LinkedIn and get your kettle on. That's the answer. Well, thank you so much, Terry. That's been a joy. And I will be doing another inspired conversation very soon. But thanks everybody for watching and listening. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
So much. Bye bye.